as long as the sole name assets are in the period of marriage.
Funny, so at some point, if Pen and I divorce, she gets a part of this company. That's damn weird.
What's the weirdest thing that couples have ever fought over?
I've seen miles.
I was going to say miles.
Miles. The CDC vouchers.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Including her CPF monies and all that. Yeah. So in the pool-
CPF?
Isn't
that's
CPF
also-
protected?
CPF is I earn one eh.
Everything is I earn one.
everything
The
I
business is I earn one.
Our guest today has seen love turn into lawsuits, has seen happily ever after turn sour. For 3 decades, she has been the calm in the storm, guiding many people through betrayals, custody battles, and emotional collapse inside Singapore's family courts. She's an author, family lawyer, a mediator, certified divorce coach, certified therapeutic justice
Divorce
practitioner,
coach?
and one of the most recommended divorce lawyers if you head on to Reddit Singapore. Please welcome Gloria James-Civetta.
Wow, welcome.
Welcome to the show.
It's good to be friends now. It's good to be friends now.
Yes.
Wait, why?
I don't know.
You don't know. Not many people I know grow up wanting to be a divorce lawyer. What's your story?
Basically, it just fell into my lap, I would say.
Oh, okay.
So the money good.
I don't think so is the money. A little bit of a journey because I thought I was going to follow my grandfather's footsteps and maybe become an architect.
Oh.
Yeah. Then I got a scholarship to become an aircraft engineer.
Wow.
So it's totally
Damn.
different directions. And then one morning I woke up and realized that what happened to my dream to become a lawyer? You know, because I've always sort of cherished that when I was in school.
Okay.
Yeah.
How come divorce and family law as opposed to, like, say, criminal law? That seems tend to be the one.
I actually do a fair bit of criminal work.
Okay.
Yeah. So from a part of my profile, if you have a look, if you just go Google my
Yeah.
name, you will see some interesting cases that I've done over these
Okay.
30 years.
Okay.
But majority of my cases tend to be family.
Okay.
So sorry. So divorce coach, right?
Yes.
What is a
At,
divorce
at which
coach?
point do I get a coach?
If you feel there's a hiccup, yeah, and you
Okay.
feel a bit unsure whether you should continue in this marriage, or even before you get married, you might want to speak to a divorce coach to understand what will be your best and worst case scenarios for certain issues.
Right.
Yeah.
How is that different to like couple counseling?
Couple counseling, you're only going through the emotional aspect. Yeah? You're trying to see how you can walk into the relationship. Counselor won't be able to tell you in the event if you divorce in 5 years mark or 10 years mark,
Yeah.
what's going
She's
to
gonna
happen
suck you
to
dry and
division.
stuff like that.
Yeah, maintenance, and what will be your rights and
Okay.
your entitlement. If you work with a lawyer who has the soft skills, you might be able to get that information, keep you a little bit more grounded, to give you an open feel where you know what's my best and worst case scenario.
Right. Is it not a conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Because
No.
you can also lead them towards a divorce. Then it's like, if you need a divorce lawyer,
You see,
flip your card over.
no, that's not what we do. The duty for lawyers in our ethical code advise clients, whenever you come for a divorce consultation, to see whether they have tried marital counseling.
okay.
Yeah, marital counseling and all that. So you can't be putting the name card, please call me, and this case is not, you can't be salvaged at all. You need to divorce. You can't be doing that as a first approach.
Is your approach always to see whether the couple can stay together first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Circumstances.
yeah.
Yeah. If you have a domestic violence case.
Yeah, I was
Of
thinking
course.
that.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, that kind of extreme cases, or maybe some sexual abuse against the child.
Or maybe they're just
Yeah.
incompatible. Is that not good enough? After a while,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
realize
Sometimes-
that they just can't let each other.
Yeah,
speak.
then at that point in time, the client would know, right? We have already communicated. We have spoken to our parents, respective
Right.
parents, in-laws, and all that. So at that time, you still can't be forcing them to
At
go for
that time, do you
marital.
ask them to go for couple counseling still?
No,
Okay.
because
Anymore.
they would have already done that.
They process already.
And now with the new fact for divorce by mutual agreement, that's something new that came
Yep.
about. So many couples have been using that as an option.
Is there a common denominator across all the cases that you've
Most
seen
of the
through the
cases.
years?
Unreasonable behavior, followed by having lived apart for 3 years.
More than 3 years.
And adultery.
Mm.
But
Okay.
this time round, many of them has been going for divorce by mutual agreement. One of the criteria is you have to show that you've gone for counseling and the counselor has already told you that reconciliation is not possible.
Okay, so it's almost like certified by a
Yeah.
professional that
Yes.
these people just can't get along.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so
Essentially.
strange
Wow.
to get someone to have to tell you that.
Yeah.
Like,
No, that means
what does that person know?
The counselor is just saying
And how
like,
long
I
do you have
give
to
up.
try for,
Yeah.
You can go for a couple of sessions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they realize that these two can't.
What is something that when couples come to you seeking counsel for divorce, and then when you tell them certain facts about divorce, it always surprises them.
The financial aspect, because
What do you
some people think that they, when you divorce, you can get 50%.
Oh,
Yeah.
I also think no.
No, so we look at, whether it's a single income, dual income marriage. So in your case, assuming you've been married for 6 years.
Coming seven.
Coming seven.
Yeah.
This is what we call a dink. Dual
Correct.
income, no kids
yes.
marriage. Basically for you, you'll be looking at what's your direct contributions to all the assets, what's her direct contribution to the assets that are either in sole names or in joint names.
Right.
So you might have a situation where it could be 60-40, maybe you paid more, right?
Right.
And then you have the next thing you have to
No,
look
that's
at
fair.
is-
We're just dividing what we paid now.
Yes.
And
yes.
the capital appreciation on top of what we paid.
No, but
okay,
that's
pretty fair.
for things that are under joint name, but you mentioned it could be sole
Sole
name.
names also, as long as the sole name assets are in the period of marriage, like your business, your 7% share gets into the pool.
It does?
Oh.
It does work.
Oh.
You're not only talking about the flat, you're talking
I
about
mean, we didn't buy it
whatever-
together, what? As in the business.
But the business
Yeah.
is also the one giving you your income.
Correct.
Yes, so,
You know what? I don't know.
It's in the pool. She doesn't own it. She's just an Then maybe you need a post up to say that we agreed to divide this joint asset. The rest of the sole name assets, like my business and all, you're not involved in the business.
Funny, so
you
at some point,
shouldn't-
if Ben and I divorce, she gets a part of this company.
Weird.
That's damn weird.
You know why? I explained to you. Because
Okay.
it's part of the pool. You get into the pool. You put everything in the pool and then you divide according to the
Wow.
percentage.
Right.
So you have direct contributions. What was her direct contribution to the business will be 0.
Yeah.
But what was her indirect contribution also we need to look at. But because you're a ding case, right?
Yeah.
No kids, nothing of that sort.
So kids make it easier or more complicated?
It should make it easier because the courts tend to give more weightage to direct contribution than indirect contribution, especially when there's no children in the marriage.
Right.
So instead of treating
okay.
it as an equal
Right.
weightage, it becomes unequal.
I don't
Your
definitely
benefit.
lose the company line.
You won't lose. You won't.
I won't
It's
lose half
just-
the company.
You
Yeah.
won't. You won't lose it. It's just a matter of how much you have to pay her.
Okay.
So
From the
evaluation
pool.
of business today.
Valuation of the business.
Great.
Wait, so is that to assume then that if you have kids and say for example a wife maybe took time off work to take care of the kids while you ran the business, then that indirect contribution is now favored?
The
more?
In her favor.
indirect contribution then becomes as if the weightage is 50-50.
Oh.
Because right
Yeah.
now, no
fair
kids.
enough. I have no
I
idea.
mean, married for 2 years, right? No kid.
But the wife was over here.
With a child. No, I'm not.
Dude, we got a part-time
yeah.
Ollie to work here.
Yeah.
Family and work.
What's the weirdest thing that couples have ever fought
Fight
over?
about.
I believe there's a lot of petty shit, right? Like this certain toy also
What's
they
the
don't want.
smallest thing?
Just to make it hurt.
I mean, the judge is not going to divide this particular toy, right? But what I found really petty was the miles.
Miles. I was going to say
Yeah,
miles.
miles.
Can split?
Can it with miles or more?
I've seen miles. I've seen. The pets, right?
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
yes.
Pets
That's fair
is
enough.
quite normal.
Understand.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the courts have come up with a ruling that says that you can't put it in any court order.
So how does that get decided
So
then?
so you do it as a private agreement between parties.
The courts basically just saw this and went, no lah, you all just settle lah.
The CDC vouchers.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
That's so small. But if you want to be
small.
petty, because it's meant for the household. So if one party is taken, they want 50% of it.
Have you ever
What?
gotten so sick of the couple, right?
I give
that
you
you'll be like,
$200 lah. Like that.
I mean, I don't see why I should come out of my pocket.
just to have the conversation end.
No. I mean, you just send them a fat bill.
Oh yeah, she gets paid.
Right.
Some of them have extensive wine collection. You might be wondering whether that's in the pool. What about watches, designer handbags?
Those
you
are
know?
understandable.
So I get a bit of designer handbags.
Yeah, how?
No, I mean,
doesn't make sense.
you put a value to it.
So you divide.
need to
Lord.
get-
Oh.
So
need to
you
get-
contrast. So for example, John's
Oh, we
part of the
contrast.
business and then Pet's handbag collection.
Yeah,
you
some-
both value and then see and then you contrast.
So it's
not
in
like
my
have
it's in
to
my
sell.
interest to boost her net worth lah.
Okay,
That time.
so maybe your pool of assets, including all the handbags, your what is it?
I have nothing.
100
I own
bottles of
nothing.
wine. You had no.
Only she has expensive
Okay.
handbags and I have nothing.
She has
What
assets.
about
He
watches?
Don't have.
Guys tend to have
Got a couple of G-Shocks, she can have it all.
Okay, G-Shocks.
John really doesn't have much.
G-Shocks, there's no
Yeah, I
value.
know. Hey, don't say that. I love
Hey,
G-Shocks.
there's some that
So assuming she has 500,000 in her name, yeah, including her CPF monies and all that, yeah, that's also in the pool.
CPF?
Yes,
That's
yes.
also in the pool.
Isn't
That's also
CPF
in the pool.
protected?
But it's mine. CPF is I earn one eh.
Everything is I earn one.
Everything,
Oh,
everything.
The
yeah.
business is I earn one.
That's true.
Wait, so CPF will facilitate the transfer.
So you have CPF money, shares, investment, whatever, your company, everything is in here. Your watches,
Okay.
Her handbags, you know, everything is in there.
It's a joint
even the
pool.
car
Okay.
also, everything is
Okay,
in
okay.
there. But you do realize that the total value is 3 million, including the house. We're looking at the net equity. And she's entitled to say 25% based on our calculation just now. And that amounts to 750,000, out of which she already have 500,000 in her name.
Yeah.
So it means that the difference you have to pay her is only
250,000.
250,000.
So you contract.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay,
so
okay,
that's how
okay.
you do it. It's not that you have
Okay.
to sell your business.
So we need to inflate.
pay her.
We need to inflate their net worth. So that
You might have to get an expert in to give a value
yeah.
to
Evaluate.
that.
An
Right.
appraiser of sorts.
Yeah.
suddenly pull out one
Yeah.
old Chanel bag. There's this one damn
Yeah.
What if it's a limited edition?
She's trying to downplay it, but then you are like, no.
You bring a bag, you go to like the celebrity friends, ask them to sign it.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Throughout the last 30 years, is there like a particular case that comes to mind that was particularly memorable for you?
There are quite a number of cases, I would say, because you do get some good outcomes. What's important for me right now is the courts have taken this approach of what we call therapeutic justice. When a marriage breaks down, let's try to look at it holistically, try to see how parties can move away from and be more future focused. Put all the bitterness behind. One of my favorite quotes from one particular judge, Justice Debbie Ong, she says that divorce is the reorganization of the living arrangements of parties. So if you look at it in that aspect, that means you're trying to put away all the bitterness. So I'm very happy to say that at least 85% of cases tend to get resolved at the mediation stage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So even before filing, maybe about 65% or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're having more uncontested divorce.
Okay. Have people filed already and then like it's clear already, then they say like, oh, I want to reverse that.
Yes, reconcile, because they then realize maybe they've been very petty, or maybe they realize this is not the right time. Because sometimes, the filing of divorce is also important because the timing is important. Your child might be studying for O-levels, A-levels, or even PSLE. I just had one last year who she withdrew the papers because of the timing issue.
Because of O levels.
Yes.
That means what she's
I think okay
postponing.
lah. She's waiting like 1 year lah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes or no questions, right?
Yes.
So you've had both male and female side come to you. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's also people that finalizing the divorce, and then there is parties that say, sorry, I don't want to divorce anymore.
Yes. Yes.
And then the same couple, right, that says, I don't want to divorce anymore, come back 6 months later and, sorry, I want to divorce.
Yes.
Yes, the same.
Has happened.
And then they pull out again.
Yes.
But no way!
No, but I imagine the first time.
for?
The first time they
I want-
withdraw is
How much fees? They haven't do any work yet. You get paid the fee six times.
No.
you get paid already. You get paid already.
You get paid already, what?
Because I have one that is ongoing back and forth right now.
Yeah.
I think almost 5 years.
Do they want to come on the
Wow.
show? Then we just
It's-
talk about their problems also.
It's I started during COVID time, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And since then, he's trying to seriously work on the marriage. Yeah. But sometimes you just can't save the marriage.
Yeah.
And I feel, I keep telling him that, look, please divorce. You can't be going back and forth with this.
No. So I would imagine the natural the follow up to this is that divorce is the good thing, the good outcome.
Yeah, marriage might not be the end all.
And so, but for the last 5 years, you haven't been able to convince him essentially.
We have filed the papers
Yeah.
and then we have to apply to withdraw it. Yeah, because he decided to give the spouse a second chance. But it was like so many times. And no choice. I still have to charge him, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
In fact, it's good for
It's
business
fine.
that he keeps going back
No,
and
but I
forth.
don't like
In
it.
fact, you should account him into your forward projections for revenue next year. Also.
In 2 years time, he's going to come back again. And he's going to withdraw
Everyone get
again.
about 6 grand from this fellow. What is the leading indicator, do you think? A common trend when you look at these couples, you feel like,
Hard to say because usually it's one party that comes to see you because there's this conflict of interest.
Right.
Right. So you usually see one party. Subsequently, when the matter goes to, that's when you see the other party. And it then strikes you, what was it? So I asked my client, what is it that made you want to marry this person? And when you look at it again, the way the person speaks, the way the person carries, you know that this is a marriage doomed.
Doomed to fail.
Why is it? Why is it?
Decline.
Can you
Yeah,
tell
somehow or
us?
another.
Behavior. Is it
Let's
behavior?
audit our lives a bit.
Maybe it's the behavior, and you can see the other party. like your client could be super refined and all that, and then the other party comes in looking like a country bumpkin and all
Right.
that. So you know they probably have different standards, different principles and all that. Recently, I had a very young couple. The guy said that look, he shares a very close relationship with his parents. They have this habit of seeing each other on a daily basis and all that, walk
Right.
the dog and all that. But the wife didn't like it.
Yeah.
Didn't
Actually, I hear
like
a
it.
lot of these stories.
Yeah. Didn't like
In-law
it because
troubles.
because they thought that was being
Yeah.
intrusive. So back to when I see them in court, the way one party looks at the other party, you can is quite common is you hear the word narcissist.
Yeah.
And you can see the way they control. There's this element of fear. There's also the reverse. The wife doesn't trust him. Every day when he comes back from trips or from work, the wife checks his phone, goes through his bag and all that.
Oh,
So
it's a
there's
terrible
a
way to
lot.
live, that one.
Yeah.
You mentioned about young couple. There was a statistic that I read from published by MSF last year, which is that the largest share of divorces tend to be couples who were married between 5 to 10 years. It somewhat confirms this phenomenon called the 7-year itch. Apparently, that's the amount of time where someone becomes dissatisfied or bored in a marriage.
This is based on the figures from 2023.
Yes.
There were about 28,000 marriages and 7,000 divorces.
Wow.
So if you do your maths, it's 1 in 4.
25%.
And the median length of marriage is about 11 years.
Okay.
Before divorce.
They've been married for 11
For
Right.
For 11 years.
Not together.
So it's not
for
the
11
7-year
years.
each, it's more of the
Right,
11
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
married for 11 years. And the age group of parties tend to be around the late 30s,
Okay.
35 to 40s.
Why do you think that's the case though? Like around that 10, 11 year mark?
I would say it's like a clock in a person's life because you have a time to, graduate from school, university. Your parents will tell you this is the time you must get married, find a partner, get married. When you look at it, it seems like 25 years old, quite a number of people are getting married at that age, right? And that tends to be, you might not be wise enough to actually look at going down that path.
Right.
Unless you're married at 25, you're giving me that smile.
No, I didn't. But I guess so. What you're saying is that
Yeah.
you're too young at that point of time to know what you're looking
Yes.
for.
And so if you're getting divorced at the age of 35, it clearly means that you could have been married at 24, 25.
Yeah.
For the marriage to be about 11 years.
see.
And you might have a young child.
Mm.
Yeah.
I know of a lot of couples where, let's say when the marriage is getting a bit stale, they decide to have a kid in attempts to save the marriage.
Yes.
In your experience, does that often work out?
Some cases, yes, because you tend to see the other side of the spouse. I would say the good things in the sense that responsibility, caring for the wife and all that. But then there's another
It could go
Another
the other
flip.
way.
It's a huge gamble. lah.
Yeah, because there are cases where the wife doesn't feel like being intimate anymore after the birth of the
Right.
child. Yeah. And the husband then decides to go for happy endings elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that's the reality.
Is there
of it.
grounds for divorce? If let's say the wife don't have sex anymore, right? Can the husband say, is that grounds for divorce?
Unreasonable behavior? What?
That's
Oh,
unreasonable
my
behavior.
We have
But does the law agree that's unreasonable? You know what I mean? Is there a
I mean,
female
because-
judge be like, I also don't like to have
Oh
sex with my
no! I
husband?
mean,
Couple
that's
must have
just
sex like
one.
that.
That's just one of the particulars to show how the marriage has broken down.
Can the wife say that his desire, his over horniness is also unreasonable
Yeah, yeah.
behavior?
Get to the point where you present the court the number of the frequency.
Yes.
So
You can get as
is there
dirty
is there a
as
band of
possible.
reasonableness and is there a band that's
So
an outlier?
subjective.
I mean, as I said, this is one of the particulars. Okay, for the example that you're giving, we can say that maybe the husband tends to have, or the spouse tends to have, wanting to have the frequency could be maybe twice a day.
How that's
That is
unreasonable?
unreasonable.
That
Yeah.
is
That is
a lot.
Cheryl, you're not married yet, you don't know. That
Yeah,
is
I
a
don't know.
lot.
I don't know. Educate me.
That is way too
Wait.
much.
Oh,
That's way
really?
too much past 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
If you
okay.
said 2 a week, that seems a
Too
lot.
much. I will sue.
In your experience, because you talked about like couples getting married maybe a bit too early, like before they're actually wise enough to realize
Yeah.
that. Do you think it's a mismatch in expectations on marriage or who they married?
I would say it's both. People change, right? Circumstances also can cause people to change. There have been cases where parties relocate from an overseas jurisdiction. They come to Singapore and the wife would be a trailing spouse. That means the wife doesn't work at all.
Okay.
Yeah. And you have situations where the marriage breaks down because the husband has strayed. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they then realize that I want to change because
in
I'm not
environment, change in wife.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems to be quite common.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. So like, are there a lot of the cases where it tends to be parties where one of them is maybe Singaporean and the other is
Yes.
an expat?
Yes,
Oh.
you have.
And
Yeah.
how complicated does that get? Because like I could imagine one party maybe just wants to move away or
Yes,
move back.
the relocation issues tend to matter, especially when you're dealing with children issues. And you might also have a case of hate convention because sometimes you don't get the permission of the father before you take the child to another jurisdiction. Or you might have a situation where I agreed to take the child to, say maybe an example would be UK. Yeah, I go back for a holiday. And subsequently change the mind and says that I'm not coming back at all.
Oh.
So that becomes a hate convention matter.
So then can the law intervene?
Yes. So it depends on where you take the child to.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
Why?
Interpol.
Yeah.
You need Interpol support.
No,
Oh, no.
there's MSF agencies that will come into the play to help parents, to get the child back to Singapore.
And whether those jurisdictions would cooperate with
Yes.
Singapore in that sense.
Right.
Yeah, if Singapore has a treaty with them.
Right. Outside of kidnapping, for example, maybe a foreign spouse and a Singaporean spouse both want to get divorced, but the foreign spouse wants to bring that child back to the home country. Is that something that the Singapore family courts are okay with, or is there any situation in which the Singapore family courts will say no?
It depends on what is best for the child.
Okay.
Because when you're looking at, if you're dealing with a child who's below 7 years old and mother has been the caregiver all the time, then you would take the presumption that the mother will be better to care for the child. But if the child is older, then you should be ascertaining what is the child's wishes. Yeah, whether the child wants to remain with
see.
which parent.
But I feel like if they're so young and it's just put forward before them, do you want to stay with mommy or
No,
daddy?
you can't. That's why
You-
it's
yeah.
very
They don't ask
difficult.
that.
If you ask them on a
You
different day, they
can't.
might have said a different
Yeah.
answer as well.
So the judges might take the position, I don't need to do what we call a judicial interview to ask the child.
Okay.
Might consider whether I should ask for a social welfare report in the sense that,
Right.
which parent, as in a custody evaluation report, as which parent would be better to care for the child before making that decision.
You actually authored a book called Understanding Child Custody Issues in Singapore.
Yes.
What do you think is like the most misunderstood part of child custody issues?
Maybe there's a misunderstanding of what custody is because custody is threefold. You're looking at custody, which is either sole custody or joint custody. You're looking at care and control, which parents actually takes care of the child. Do I have sole care and control, shared care and control, or split care and control, which is quite rare.
Okay.
And then the next element of the custody aspect will be what kind of access do I get? Do I get liberal? Do I get reasonable? The visitation aspect.
Right.
Yeah. Or
Why
do-
is that
or
three
has it
different
be-
things? If I have custody, I don't need access. What? Like if I have custody, I have access, right?
No,
The other
that's
parent.
see, custody is in. You're talking about important decisions in the child's life.
Okay.
It's the care and control. Who is having in charge of the caregiving arrangements for the child?
So custody is to do with like schools and uprooting the country. Okay.
Yes, all the major decisions in the child's life.
Right.
Yeah.
They actually are fighting for care and
Care
control.
and control.
I
So that's the
see.
misconception.
I see.
Yeah.
How much
Yeah.
of this is to be agreed on by the couple versus a judge decide?
I mean, the courts encourage parties to try to agree. you
Okay.
know?
So if both parties are agreeable with custody, care and control and access, usually the judge will be
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
okay with it. I see.
So that's when, when the courts endorses your agreement. The sticking point is right now, maybe I have limited access. Yeah. But when the child is older, can we look at it, review it and give me more access?
I would imagine that gets reviewed as the child gets older.
No, it's not mandatory at the moment.
Right.
Yeah. So it's for parties to work towards it.
Okay.
Let's say my wife, she has a lot of money and I don't, but I have a 4-room flat. And I'm like, my child will be happier with me in my 4-room flat
Yeah.
than her in her GCB. If you look at it simplistically from a resource point of view, we can easily define who is better resourced, right?
Yes.
But let's say if I go to you and I have the good eye to go to lawyer Gloria, right? And that person went to someone else, let's say your rival, right? And I say, help me. I want custody, I want control, I want everything.
So when the client comes to me, I look at the factors, and if I feel that maybe this particular parent is more suited to take care of the child, and the other side is of course saying that their client is better
More
suited.
suitable.
Yeah. So you have this, you got no choice, but you got to go to court.
Right.
And you have to let the court determine. But before that, you will, of course, have to attempt mediation. But the courts can then decide at that point in time, depending on the age of the child, do I interview the child? Do I call for custody evaluation report?
Right.
Yeah. Or do I appoint this thing called like a child lawyer, a child representative?
Which you are as well.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
represent the child.
You have
and
cornered the
not-
market,
Child and
Gloria.
parents.
So there might be a situation where the parents are represented by different lawyers and then you represent the child.
Yes, only the
Oh.
child. So basically, I'm the voice for the child.
And that's usually appointed by the courts. Like the courts step in and
Yes.
say the child needs a lawyer.
Yes.
Wow.
So my youngest child I ever done for being the voice of the child was a 5-year-old.
What might you say
How?
in interest of the child?
You see, that's
How does one even get into that headspace?
yeah, I know. Talking to a 5-year-old, but in my circumstances, I think the 5-year-old was a little bit more mature. I would say for a 5-year-old, maybe acting as an 8-year-old.
You probably have to in the situation
They
both
would
parents.
have.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting to their level, which is not easy because I'm not for your father, I'm not here for the mother, but I'm actually here for you. Whatever you communicate to me, I'm going to be your voice, telling to the
see.
court how you feel. But sometimes some kids will tell you, I will share with you, but you cannot
Don't
tell mommy
share.
and daddy or, somebody else. Then we got to watch how we,
Navigate
document the submissions.
Okay.
My experience with that 5-year-old was amazing, I would say, because she could share what she wanted. I saw her being very happy with, the father and being very happy with the mother. But because of her age, you would need to look at giving some sort of routine and stability, so you can't be shifting between two homes. I actually literally went to the child's kindergarten to see her routine. So I saw her going to school, going back home in the school bus. I actually sat next to her and everybody was looking at me. I was like, and she felt special. She
okay.
felt
Okay,
very
understand.
special. And then some of the tricks that we use is, okay, we are done. You want to call your parent? And then turns out to be
Which one you want to call?
Right.
you look at the body language and the child will say, okay, dials the number because the child remembers the mobile number and then tells me, okay, call. And then I realize that it's calling mommy.
Right.
So investigate.
But I call for
Yeah.
different reasons though as a kid.
If I want someone
my
to pick me
father
up,
don't
it's-
really care about my academic last time, so I'll call him.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
if it's like a character problem,
Then you're there.
they call my dad.
But did you come from a divorce background? No.
So sorry to be blunt, but in that situation in which you represent the child, who pays for the legal fees?
Oh, the parents.
Both lah.
Okay,
Yeah, but
okay,
we
okay.
have to take a very reduced rate.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
of course. Right,
yeah,
right, right.
probably not more than $1,000.
Just to circle back to John's original question. So then if the situation comes, a client comes to you and you realize that actually the kids are better off with the other, like the spouse, you will tell your client, say, I think you should.
yeah.
You can, man.
Yeah.
Sure.
Then my
Like
Gloria dad come
advice
to you
lah.
for what?
I know.
For everything else.
You see, the thing is, at the end of the day, I have to tell you your best and worst case scenario, right?
Yes.
That's my duty.
Yes.
So if I tell you that, look, if you can negotiate a settlement and you can get something which is the best of both worlds, then take it. There have also been cases where clients have come and asked you, I want to get sole care and control, and they're not going to get it, but you go through the cycle because the client wants
They're
you
just
to
gonna
do
see
it.
for themselves.
Yes.
You still have to tell them that
And
you
because for
cannot
some
lah.
clients, they tell you, you don't need to tell me my best and worst case scenario. Let the court determine. So you go according to what the client wants
Right.
in that circumstances.
There is a perception that there is a bias against fathers when it comes to divorce proceedings. Is that true?
Because of the presumption, if the child is below 7 years old, mothers are preferred because of the maternal bond. They think that mothers, there are case law to say that mothers will be better to care for the child.
They being
But-
the family courts.
Yes.
Okay.
But the trend right now is, we look at the picture holistically before deciding, what will be best for the child.
Has there ever been like a custody ruling that surprised you in any way?
There was one case where, despite the court giving access for the father, the mother was, what we call exercising parental alienation.
Isolate the father and the
Yes.
Okay.
child.
Okay.
Yes. You have this situation where sometimes the one parent will brainwash the child in a way saying that, oh, you shouldn't go with your dad because your dad might do this. Or, vice versa. If the dad will say your mother is not very good for you, your mother canes you, your mother will do this and do that. All these kind of things to instill some element of fear against the child. We had one where the court decided to reverse care and control to the father because the father was deprived of access. But unfortunately, before the father could get the child, mother decided to leave the country.
With the child.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. So that's
that is so Channel 8. It's real, huh? These things happen.
yeah,
huh?
it's real, very real.
But the
you
court
know.
already ruled, so that means actually she's committing a crime.
Yes, and she's been on the run now.
We asked the community for some questions. It is a very interested topic. So we've talked about assets being split up, but how is debt split up when there's a divorce?
Great question.
Yeah, when you determine the pool of assets, you also factor in the debts. But the debts must be for the benefit of the family.
So
yeah.
if one party took debt and it's bad, they take up 100% of the debt eventually.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say I use $50,000 credit limit, right, to fund our house.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the
That's together.
liability.
Yeah, so
That's
we
a
will split the
liability.
liability.
Yes.
Okay.
I took
Yes.
30,000 personal loan to fund my gambling addiction. So that's
Yes,
bad.
that's,
that one
that's
he pay.
you have to pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was gambling so that we could have a better life.
No,
and
that's
then when
not-
you win a little bit, you bought me dinner.
And that's where the total comes in. Are PIs commonly used, especially
For
in Singapore?
adultery, yes. And also for custody issues also sometimes.
So if one spouse believes that there's abuse at home with the children, is it?
Yeah, or maybe, the husband says that I'm having access to the child, but then turns out to be that he's introduced the new girlfriend to the children, so you might have that kind of circumstances.
How much is a PI? How does it cost?
Sometimes it's more expensive than the lawyer's fee.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
But PI evidence is official, like it's valid. Because I heard
if
it's
you're
not.
using it for adultery, and the evidence has to be, when you get the PI evidence, you need to file within 6 months. If you're using the fact of adultery,
My question is is there no PDPA laws where you can't take a
yeah.
photograph of people in public and then submit that?
you can do that.
Okay. Oh.
Yes. See, the thing is, you might have your spouse, holding hands with another person,
Yeah.
a third party. You might not be able to prove adultery, right? But you might be able to say unreasonable behavior with improper association because associating with someone else. Yeah. So for that, I mean, if you
Legal
submit
speak.
your own photos, you can submit your own photographs. You don't need a PI report for that.
Sorry, on that note of the price, right? How much is the divorce? Since the money that I will need to pay out.
I mean,
3,000.
assuming
Range.
yeah, it's about there.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, really? I expected
yes.
five
Yeah.
figures.
Remember
No,
we had
that's for
time on the show?
uncontested.
Okay. So assuming it's the simplest, everyone is happy with how it goes.
Yeah,
just to get
both
a
of
lawyer.
you have talked about the terms, and then the lawyer will look through the terms. Lawyers will probably give you some options to consider, to tighten it, to make sure that, you don't have to file any applications in future.
Down the road, yeah. So that's about 3K.
Yeah.
So now
That's
3K sounds
okay.
expensive. So
Expensive.
in those situations, are lawyers necessary if everyone is happy and amicable? And
I mean, you just have to work with one lawyer on the terms.
Okay.
Yeah,
So both come in and
so-
say, hey, we want a divorce.
Yeah, so if you already talked about it, so one party be the applicant, one will be the respondent.
I see.
You work with one lawyer, but we always advise the other party to go get your independent advice.
How would divorces work when the matrimonial house is still under MOP, minimum occupancy
Yeah, so
period?
sometimes you might have to look at not divorcing right now. You enter into a deed of separation, wait out for the 3 years or 5 years, and then you file for divorce. Yeah, but you use the deed of separation, which is like a post-nuptial agreement,
Right.
as an
I
understanding.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How fast can a couple get divorced, assuming that there's no fights involved?
Uncontested.
Okay, no fight, no kids.
No kids.
Yeah. Then we're looking at the lawyer needs at least a week or so to do the drafting. Yeah, because we need to go back and forth with you to ensure that all the terms are correct. When the lawyers are filing the paper, you will get a divorce hearing in about a month's time. It's an administrative divorce. And thereafter, you wait for the final divorce paper. That will take another 3 months.
4 months.
So 4 months is administrative divorce. So give and take, within 5 months, you can be divorced. Yeah?
Okay, less than a year. If
Yeah.
you
Still
really
so
want to.
long, longer than expected, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
No, but there are exceptional cases where you apply to abridge the timing of 3 months. So it's an abridgment of time.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's subject to court's approval. One typical reason can be maybe the other spouse has found a new partner, and this new partner is due to give birth.
And they want to
Yeah.
secure the marriage, essentially.
Yeah, so that can be shortened to maybe 2 weeks instead of 3 months.
Wow.
Someone asked, if one party wants to get divorced but the other doesn't, how long and on what grounds can the non-compliant party drag it out for?
If you were to file for divorce and the other party contested, that means basically denying that the party has been unreasonable. You go through a contested divorce. By the time it comes for hearing, could be about at least a year.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you succeed in it, it's okay. It means that you're allowed to go into the next round, which will be then dealing with the ancillary issues. So if you're talking about divorce per se, it could be resolved by then.
Right.
Yeah. But what if the other party is still vindictive? Die, I still want to be married to you, right?
Yeah.
They
Not
might-
vindictive lah, just like in love lah.
Okay, maybe it's still in love, still cannot accept the fact that the marriage has broken down, then files an appeal, then you add on another 6 months.
But it's so weird for the judge to now say, no, you all go home together. You know, like she clearly feels unhappy.
Yeah, but there are circumstances where if the unreasonable behavior is not made out, then the courts will then tell you that, look, you have not proven your case. You cannot show that the other party has
You have
been...
to stay married.
Yeah. So that'll be the hard fact.
Awkward. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Family coach, now we go to family. MSF comes in. Yeah.
That's where the divorce coach comes in.
Yeah.
The divorce coach would have to tell you what to do next.
Let's say I get a divorce, right? My husband filthy rich. Does that mean that my alimony is a lot?
No, we have to look at your standard of living. Right?
But I'm so used to this like standard of living because I've been living with him.
We also have to look at your age,
35.
what you were doing.
Hey, don't say-
what,
I was not saying your age. I was just, she's not 35. You're not even 35. You
No. Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that we're looking at the length of marriage. Yeah, we look at the length of marriage, the kind of standard of living you had. Were you working? So a lot of factors will go into it. We had some cases where an amount was given like a token. So maybe for the next 2 years or something, you get X amount of dollars as maintenance. Because if you are young, you're supposed to go back and work, even though you're given a very nice lifestyle. Yeah. So
I know. I love that the court acknowledged that shit. I love that the court. But how did Jamie Chua get that?
No, exactly.
I mean, you could be looking at what was the actual net worth of the husband, right, at that point in time.
That's
And,
right.
and she has kids also,
Yes.
right?
So Jamie Chua was
Yes.
represented.
Yeah. And she was represented. So the key is get representation
So a
and
good
so if you
lawyer.
wanna get,
and a
how do we
good
get in touch
family
with you?
lawyer. You just
Here.
Google.
You mentioned, so Cheryl's question was alimony, but you mentioned maintenance.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, what's the
alimony
difference?
is the American term.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
It's the same thing. Huh?
Yes, we say spousal support right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does that tend to look like? Is it usually attached to like say school fees and like
So if you're looking at the spouse, we have to look at the income. What was she, if the husband has always given her X amount of dollars, here's $1,000 for you, you can spend it on yourself. Maybe she was a homemaker. She has never been, he covers all the other expenses. Then you've given her a kind of a standard of living. And if it's difficult for her to get back to work, then you might want to throw in, can I have 3 years of reskilling, fees to be paid? So
and
these
that's
are
what good
some
lawyer
things.
gets for you.
Yeah, a good lawyer.
Reskilling?
Good lawyer would
Wow.
ask.
Reskilling.
He's getting skills future and lump sum up front. Do you have a prenup with your husband?
Yeah.
Actually, no.
Oh,
Nobody wants to pay for the professional fees.
No.
Why?
I think at that point, good question, but I think at that point in time, we didn't think
of
about
it.
it. But I normally tell clients that, when your circumstances changes, you can make a post-nuptial agreement.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
If your marriage is a short marriage, so a prenuptial agreement would be helpful.
Yeah.
But if your marriage is about 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, the longer it is, a prenuptial agreement, it's not something that the courts will give more weight to it. Mainly because a lot of things could have happened. You could have kids, change in the ownership of the property, or you bought more assets, or
Strike
this and
lottery.
that. We have had clients.
Right.
Yes.
Wow, but the prenup will cover all these things already, right?
You can't really predict, because a prenup that deals with child issues gives the court the right to look into the agreement again. And the court can make a decision, because what you decided then might not be in the best interest of the child.
Let's say I've consulted you as your
Yes.
client
Yeah.
that I would like to sign a prenuptial agreement with Patrina Tan Hui Ying, right?
Full name.
What would you make sure is in my prenup agreement?
Anything to do with financials.
Okay.
Because courts tend to give more weight to the financials rather
So I
than...
would keep what's mine, or we would divide at
you,
a
you,
ratio
you
that.
can, you can agree to keep what you have prior to marriage, both of you, but anything that is bought during the period of marriage, then you consider how you're going to divide that particular asset.
So when it comes to a post-nuptial, so then, like say they've been married for like 6-7 years now,
Yes.
and they decide to do a post-nuptial,
Yes.
then you can decide everything that you've earned
At that
up
point.
to now.
You can do it as a financial. You can also,
Right.
assuming you have kids, then you deal with the kids issues too, and spousal maintenance or child maintenance.
Right.
So you can deal with it in the post-nup.
The thing that I can't get over is that awkwardness, right? Because now I'm learning that there is such thing as a post-nup for the first time.
Yeah.
I strike lottery and I want a post-nuptial now. It signals
Yeah.
to my partner know that I'm
don't trust
I'm
you.
considering.
What I earn, I'm not willing to share.
Yeah.
I had 3 clients that won lotteries,
I didn't know it's
total
so
big
common.
sweep, and the Dubai Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or a millionaire.
Yeah.
You can win $1 million.
Yeah.
Basically, try to put the funds in a separate account, and then they want to do a post-nup to say whatever monies I have earned, be it bonuses or anything of that sort, it will be in this particular account. It's not
Yeah.
meant to be divided.
Wait, and they did that while the marriage is in good state.
Yes. I had one other case which I found it very interesting because the value at the point in time when they did the post-nuptial agreement, because we are looking at the point in time you sign the post-nuptial agreement, the pool of assets stops at that point in time,
Right.
4 years ago. And so the pool of assets were worth only about 50 mil. But if 4 years down, you add another 0, the pool of
Wow.
assets grew.
Wow.
So
Also, all these agreements are locked in time. They are not a future.
yeah, you can
projecting.
lock it. You can lock it in time for
Or
post-nuptial
you can make it
agreement.
future seeing also lah. You can
Yes.
save for all
Yeah.
the money at the point of divorce.
Yes.
It will be mine also can.
Yes, you can.
I see.
Yeah, if you have somebody who's extremely wealthy, this is the second marriage they're getting into. That is the category of people who want to do a prenup because you want to protect what you've already earned.
Lost
You
one
might-
time before.
They already know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And what if you want to, leave it behind for your children from the first marriage?
I see.
Yeah. So they're likely to do prenups.
Would you recommend a prenup for every couple, or you feel like actually it's circumstantial?
I think it's subjective to the couple. We have had cases where the clients feel that that's going to rock the marriage, and there was one case where it was sayonara. It was called off 1 week before the actual wedding.
Because of the prenup.
Yes.
No, I
Dodged
think
the bullet.
I think they dodged the bullet. Yeah.
Yeah, I said the thing is, when you're talking about prenup, you want to ensure that you've been having that discussion for a period of time,
Yeah.
not being forced to get into a prenup in a very short period of time.
Right.
So I tell clients that look, if time is of the essence, and you don't have time, then come back and do a post-nup.
Post-nup clarity.
No, but it's the same document lah, right? It's the same contract, right? It's just.
Same idea.
It's just different
just at which
wording.
point only, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Do you have marriage advice? Let's say not for your clients, okay, for your children, like your future 27-year-old child.
If you're just an ordinary couple, I
So
would
not
then
super
say
rich lah.
not super rich, nothing of that. You're just making a decent living and all that. Just be open and honest with each other. No necessity to do a prenup. Circumstances changes, maybe consider a post-nup, but just live life as a happy married couple.
But that's your first advice, right?
Yeah.
How about
Another one?
Another advice.
Yeah.
This would be more on the relationship. If you find that communication, after being married for a couple of years, one party decided that I think this is the right time to have family planning, to have a child. Then what are you going to do? What if one is ready and what is not? How do you plan moving forward? Because
Yeah.
that could be one of the reasons why the marriage breaks down in the
Yeah.
3-year mark, right?
Yeah.
Assuming you're in the 2-year mark. Be open and honest with each other. Communicate your intention and all that. Don't just harbor those
right?
feelings to
What I'm
yourself.
hearing is that when in many marriages, there's this particular milestone that couples don't pay attention to enough, which is that when one party is ready to have a child and the other person say, no, yeah,
Not
give me a
yet.
couple more years to stabilize my career.
Yeah.
So that where we always just shrug off is actually a very defining moment in a marriage.
Because I have seen situations where one party decides to, wait because the other party says, look, I'm not ready. And then 8 years into the marriage, 7 years into the marriage, find somebody else. And then what happens then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? That particular spouse would have wasted her youth.
Right.
She could be at an age where she's not able to have a child now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
John Paul, who's not here today but really wanted to be here, he asked if relationships and love could be taught as a subject in school, what is the most important lesson you would impart school children?
Don't feel forced to get married.
Okay.
You know,
At
don't-
all. Yeah.
I mean, don't feel forced to get married.
Yeah.
Take your time to find whether this is the right partner and whether you're ready for marriage, because marriage is a big step. Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of commitment and investment into it. It's a long journey ahead. You know, when you're young, things are beautiful,
Rosy.
you know, and rosy. You know, things seems to be magical. Everything works. You get into this fancy wedding. You know, you get all the ang paos and all that. But the reality of marriage is, after 1 or 2 years, because we have seen quite a number of people coming and saying, so I really have to wait for the 3 years mark, right? You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
So very
so
new
that they can
couples.
get divorced.
Yes. So some of them feel that, look, you know, I don't want, you know, for the marriage to appear as if it's a very long marriage. You know, 3 years is too much of a difficulty for me. So some of them consider judicial separation.
What's that?
Is that an annulment or different?
It's not annulment, it's
Okay.
not like a divorce, but you are officially separated by the courts.
Okay.
So your pool of assets, everything stops at that point
Right.
in
Okay.
time. So you've been married only for 6 months or 1 year, your pool of assets stops there. And then when your 3 years of marriage is up, that's when you file for divorce.
Oh.
So they only take into account that 6 months essentially.
Yeah.
So
Rather
that that
than-
person also has the ability to say, I was only married for 1 year.
Yep.
As opposed to saying that I have a 3-year
Yeah.
marriage, then it feels like 3 years is a long marriage.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
or
makes
like all the
sense.
indirect contributions you had, whether emotional or whatnot, was only for that short period of time.
Yes.
How come they cannot just get an annulment then if they already
No,
know?
it depends on the circumstances. What if you already consummated the marriage?
Oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you prove that though? Like,
Yeah, actually-
like
But most marriage already consummated, what?
it's like,
Even
you-
before the
right?
marriage?
Yeah, lor.
Yes.
we did not have sex. Like, how do you?
You know, but there are some cases where parties don't, you know,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
don't consummate the marriage at all.
What does
Yeah.
the courts deem as
Why do
okay,
the
evidence?
courts care how we fuck?
No, I mean we don't need to produce
see.
medical
Okay,
evidence
okay.
in that aspect.
Okay.
But if you're going for willful refusal to consummate, that means you're saying the other party doesn't want to do it with me. Yeah.
It's good. That's an acceptable reason for the court.
Yeah, but you need to show not one time you chased for it.
Okay.
Ask for it a couple,
So these are
3,
like
4
texts
times.
or like
How to show
Yeah,
on
you-
paper?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to
Text,
talk
ah,
about
like tonight.
circumstances.
But the thing is, so you gotta reply anything. Like, see how.
Yeah.
Don't say no. It's incriminating
you
to
know,
say no.
Can we do it tonight? No, I'm very tired.
No, say see
you
how.
know.
maybe.
Then reject in person.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you go for a holiday and, you know, thinking that it's going to happen, but it
Okay.
didn't happen, right? So you have to talk about circumstances for willful refusal.
Okay.
But then on the other side, there's another option where you have incapacity to consummate.
Okay.
That means the fact
Medically.
that now you find that person a bit, you know, just looking at that person is very traumatic.
No.
You can't do it.
No, there's some people that cannot
Yeah.
take vaginal intercourse. It just hurts too much.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
medical. Yeah.
That's medical.
No, but
then
she's
there's
got a
also
big down.
She's saying like the let's say the
Psychological.
girl or the guy look at the partner and think ugly.
That has to
And
be the
not-
first one. That's the willful. That has to be the willful.
But she's saying it's not.
No, it is still emotional and psychological. Yeah.
But this is being an
Yeah,
asshole.
but you do need to get you need to get a medical report to show
Wow.
how you've been
Repulsed
mentally
by this
yes.
fella. Oh, it's so painful. I don't think I can survive this emotionally.
Before we end, it's time for Painting of the Episode. Today's painting is by Janine Tam, an artist with global developmental delay. And her painting is called
Wonderland. Much like Alice's whimsical journey in Wonderland, Janine expresses joyous chaos and wonderment through color and movement on this canvas.
This year, Shaping Hearts is happening at our Tampines Hub from the 13th to 28th of September, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Click the link in the description box to learn more about the artists and how to support them.
All right, thank you, Gloria, for indulging in a lot of our very capo and spicy questions. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
So let's say we are married.
Yeah, consummate immediately.
No, and then whatever lah, you know, but we want to end now because I have a new boyfriend.
yeah.
Right?
Likely.
And then so sends the lawyer, okay?
Yeah.
We just decide that we are going to tell the lawyer that we did not consummate our marriage.
Yeah.
And then we both come and tell you we did not.
Yeah, how? Cannot.
So
why cannot?
in that aspect, if you come and tell me the information, I'm not going to go into an investigation.
Okay.
I just
Yeah,
have
right? That would be
I just have to
ridiculous.
take
Your word.
Yeah, I have
value.
to take your word. I have to take your narrative because if end of the day, if you lie,
Yeah.
you face the music, right?
Correct.
It's
But
not
we
the
can never
lawyers.
get caught, you know what I mean? Unless one of us leak video.
Yeah, or one of us
But
goes on a
but I
podcast.
never
and-
allow you to video.
No,
when we
but
do
then
it.
they still have to go to the court for the official.
No, you don't have to go to court. It's administrative. Everything is administrative.
Oh, it's just
Yes.
outside the court.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.